Congenital anomaly and birth asphyxia, um, both topic is very important, but as per my student life experience, these two topic in orthopedics is quite difficult to understand, along with very difficult to give answer in the exam also. So though I am not expertise on pediatric orthopedic, still I will try my level best. At least you can give answer to exam, as well as you can clear your basic concept. Okay. Now most common wrong concept regarding the terminology congenital anomaly. It's include all biochemical, structural and functional disorder present at birth, but congenital malformation which we are used to deal in orthopedics, that is it include only the structural defect present and at the birth. Okay. Now as the embryogenesis of human, at the 4 week the upper limb bud develop. After 2 to 3 days and the lower limb blood will develop. Now there is a huge genetic remodeling and genetic expression and interaction with a negative and positive feedback which help for embryogenesis along with the limb bud organization. And for upper limb TBX5 gene, and for lower limb TBX4 gene are the sole controller of remote of the organogenesis of the limb bud. And within 6 weeks and within 8 weeks the upper limb and lower limb get developed. Now this development is not very easy process. It has to go through some genetic positive and negative feedback. Induction is done by fibroblastic growth factor 10, then bone morphogenic protein 2 and bone morphogenic protein 4 play crucial role in cartilage to bone development. Sonic Hedgehog gene and Hox gene are sole responsible for the development of the axial growth. Along with one WNT gene is also help for the development of the special movement of the limb. Now especially Hox gene has different part, like 9 help to develop scapula, 10 part will develop to humerus, 11 radius and ulna, 12 metacarpal, and 13 this has been asked in AIMS exam. Hox 13 gene is responsible for digit development. So any mutation over this can cause polydactyly or syndactyly, or any problem of this gene expression can cause polydactyly and syndactyly. And though I am talking about the genetic or genetic level of the embryogenesis, the malformation, especially in orthopedic and congenital malformation, are multifactorial. It is also MCQ questions. And regarding the limb bud development, at around 8 weeks there will be a special thing, this is called rotation. The upper limb will rotate dorsally and lower limb will rotate ventrally. Ventrally means in front, and dorsally means posterior. Okay. As a result, the opening of elbow joint and knee joint is opposite, and which actually helps in our body function and the movement and locomotor system, along with some defense mechanism, because maximum viscera and maximum vessels and nerve are protected when patient or any human can support himself by this embryo position. And this embryo position is programmed from his birth, that this is the most safest position of our body, and this also help our normal body function. Okay, now congenital limb deformity are generally two types. One is transverse arrest, and second is longitudinal arrest. Now a baby may miss a limb. This is called amelia. A baby may have some extra limb, or a baby have some longitudinal growth deficiency. This is called transverse arrest. They may, where there will be small digit, digit over the wrist, okay, or the small digit just over the ankle, and this is, we all know, this is called hocomelia. Okay, and if both lower limb is fused, this is called sirenomelia. If the both disease, the zygosis process or the normal apoptosis is not occurred, this is called syndactyly, and extra digit called polydactyly. And if one digit is very large, this is called macrodactyly. And if one of the bone is not developed, this is called radial clav hand. And and it is it I will discuss it. This is a question for our PG exam. I will discuss it immediately. Among them, see, this is called amelia, and sometimes the Poland syndrome may associated with absence of muscle, absence of clavicle, and absence of pectoralis major muscle, and some of all the congenital anomaly may be associated with some syndromic association. And for this macrodactyly, what we can do, generally, if this is very irritating, then we can go for amputation only. This is called raise amputation. We will do a amputation from here. This is called raise amputation. Okay, for syndactyly, we can do a jet plasty. This is called jet plasty. Okay, and for polydactyly, we can just amputate the extra digit. And but for this transverse arrest and phocomelia and sirenomelia, this generally this sirenomelia child has multiple cardiac and renal problem, they will die. But if this the growth of this transverse arrest and phocomelia is quite normal, so they can have a normal life with the prosthetic limb. Okay, now most commonly asked, and as per my knowledge, most difficult portion of pediatric orthopedic is development dysplasia of hip, and most of the students are used to tell it that it is a congenital dislocation of hip. Now this term is totally obsolete. The new nomenclature is developmental dysplasia of hip. Okay, this is not dislocation, developmental dysplasia. Why dysplasia? Because the growth of any joint or periarticular growth is depend on the weight bearing over this joint, and it is interdependable, and it will follow the biological plasticity of the joint of bone. What do you mean by biological plasticity? I already discussed it in my Perthes disease class, that if this is the acetabular socket and this is the head, if this due to any reason this head is not contained with this acetabular socket, then the development of the femoral head along with the swallowing of the acetabular cavity will not occur normally. So what are the causes or what are the pathoanatomy for a developmental dysplasia of hip? Generally, limbus and neolimbus is the pathognomonic feature for this congenital malformation. What is this is called labrum. Labrum is a fibrocartilaginous structure around the rim of the acetabulum. Now, if it is inverted or hypertrophy, or in within the superior aspect or of the floor of the roof of the acetabulum, there is a hypertrophic abnormal thickening. This is called neolimbus. This inverted limbus and the the hypertrophic limbus are the main blocking effect of the femoral head containment. As a result, that femoral head is dislocated, and it will cause the sequelae of the maldevelopment of the hip. And what will happen? This acetabular floor will shallow enough, and this head, the growth of the head will not good, and the pulvinar fat will be hypertrophied, and the ligamentum teres femoris will long enough, and the laxity of the capsule, and that head generally posteriorly subluxated or dislocated. And as a result, in the long run, if it is neglected, then the operation or the prognosis of that development dysplasia of hip is very bad. Though we have backup with the multiple operative technique, but believe me, the diagnosis in early stage or at the neonatal period is very important for the prognosis of this malformation. And this is now a medical negligence if you do not refer this any newborn baby with suspected case of skeletal malformation, if you don't refer to a orthopedic surgeon or any specialized surgeon, that pediatric orthopedic surgeon, that they can miss this this abnormality. If they can address it at the proper time, then the result will be very good. Okay, now how you understand this child will suffer from DDH? The 2 to 3 points you just have to see that if in the newborn baby you can see the abnormal skin fold of the thigh fold, or and asymmetrical gluteal fold. Along with, if we do the Galeazzi test or flexion of the both hip and knee, then we can easily see unilateral DDH. We can see there will be limb discrepancy of the femoral shortening. This is called Galeazzi test. Okay, different height of the knee. That signifies, along with, if we go for telescopic test, that will be positive. Now along with this highly placed greater tubercle, along with the otoral knee and Barlow sign are the main examination for pediatric hip dislocation. Now if patient come in childbearing weight bearing age group, then we have to see this Galeazzi sign, asymmetrical femur fold, and at that time we can get extra sign, this was scoliosis or increased lumbar lordosis may be present, along with some gait abnormality like adductor lurch or welding gait. Now most commonly asked question over the Barlow test and otoral knee test. What are those? These are the clinical tests done in neonate that you can assess the hip is normally functioning or not. If we internally rotate the hip and then the femoral head will dislocate it with a special feeling of the treating surgeon. Or if we try to abduct it, then there will be clicking sound for relocate the femoral head. Now this test is called Barlow test and this test is called otoral test. How you remember this? One of our teacher told us Baharlo, B for Barlow. Baharlo means just dislocate. Okay, so if you do internal rotation or adduction, then femoral head will dislocate or it will get outside. So B for Barlow, Baharlo, Baharlo, and Andarlo. Andarlo means O for otoral knee. Andarlo means you have to do abduction and you reduce the hip. Andarlo, O for O. So This is bar low test, this is autoline test. Do not mm, forget bahar low, andar low. Now X-ray. When you will get a X-ray for any developmental dysplasia of hip, you will just lucky enough to see the normal hip. Generally it is unilateral, and in that case you have some reference point, like if you join these two triangular cartilage, this is called Hill-Jaina line. Now this is called Senatron's line. That it means the lower part of the ischial the pubic bone or obturator fossa upper line, that will be continued with the lower end of the femoral neck. This is called Senatron's line. This is a radiological line that we can assess the femoral neck is normal, and there will be no dislocation of the hip. Now in this case that will be dislocated. See, there will be break along with the femoral head always just touching the upper head of the Hill-Jaina line. Here will be dislocated. And one is, if we draw a vertical line from the outer aspect of the acetabulum, and then this vertical line is called Parkin's line. The normally the femoral head will be just midline of that Parkin's line. Here the head is laterally subluxated or dislocated. So these three line will help you to easily assess that is a case of developmental dysplasia of hip. Along with, you can assess the normal congruity of the femoral head. See, this is the congruity is so good, but then due to dislocation the congruity is less. Along with the acetabular depth, see, this is the acetabular normal and depth, and but here the acetabular is so shallow. Okay, and also see the bone quality over here, and see the bone quality over there, that the bone stock over the supracell region is so less. So you can easily compare with a normal hip and a pathological hip. Now X-ray is good, but in nowadays we used to do the ultrasound of the hip. In that ultrasound of hip, and this is very difficult part, but just on I want to give you a small information. See, this is the acetabular cavity, and this is the iliac blade. Now if the head is going to subluxated, then if we draw a line from this is called Parkin's line, and if we draw a line from of the acetabular inclination, then with this vertical line, with this acetabular inclination, this angle called alpha angle. This alpha angle is determined that the depth of the acetabulum. As the depth of the acetabulum will decrease, the chance of dislocation will be increased. So this is called graph classification. The alpha angle more than 60 is normal, and as the alpha angle decrease, the chance of dislocation is high. Okay, so this is the ultrasound finding that the measurement of the alpha angle has been done. As per the measurement, they will grading this dislocation. This is called graph classification. Just know this fact, that's all. Now after clinical and radiological assessment, you have to do something for the child. Now what we will do, before going in any intervention, you have to judge the age of the patient. If patient is neonate, then you can put a public harness for 6 weeks, up to even up to 6 months you can use, because this public harness will reduce the hip in normal position. I will show it immediately. After that, and up to 8 months you can apply a traction. You will try to do a close reduction, then you can do a plaster also. Then after you can try it up to 1 to 1.5 years or 18 months. After 18 months the chance of close reaction is very less. So after 18 months to 2 year we can do a open reduction. And sometimes the open reduction is not after open reduction, the as the shallow of the acetabulum cavity, the open reduction, the stability is not good, so it may be back up with some osteotomy which helps to improve the rooming of the acetabulum cavity of the rooming of the head, femoral head. So up to 6 years we can perform multiple type of osteotomy around the hip. Now before going any operative procedure or to assess the reduction of the hip under CM, or if we need a confirmation the reduction or any surgical planning, before surgical we have to do arthrogram. What do we mean arthrogram? It is Condé 420 die have to introduce in the hip joint, and after that we will see the X-ray. Okay, and that will help you what will be the laxity, what will be the pulvinar pad of fat, what will be the acetabulum cavity, what will be the all the position will in detail view you can get. So now one by one up to 6 months, okay, up to 6 from the birth up to 6 months we can use this is called public harness. It has a chest strap, two shoulder strap, and two legs strap. This is called public harness. It will help to flex the hip and abducted, that will reduce the hip. Okay, after that you can do the plaster or try to do close reduction and do this hip spica type of cast which help to reduce the head, and it will help for healing of the soft tissue. Now after after 1.5 years the close reduction not possible, then we can do open reduction by anterior approach, and we will remove the hypertrophied pulvinar pad of fat, and we will put the head in within the socket, and we may give a proper stability with a only a small K wire through the joint, and we will remove this K wire after 1 month. And after this operation we can put this plaster also, because child is non cooperative always, they can remove they can redislocate his hip, and the hip will be in 100 degree of the flexion and 30 degree of the abduction and neutral rotation. This is called human position. Okay, but one of the side effect of this position is due to pressure, avascular necrosis of the head is increased, along with all the complication of open reduction is there, along with this for this cute child this type of operation is very difficult to manage in the operation also, operation theater, and the post of management. Now after 2 years, though we can do open reduction, the stability of the joint is very questionable. So what we can do, we make a good rooming of the acetabulum cavity. How? We can take a bone graft from the outer aspect of the iliac crest, and we will cut this the floor of the roof of the acetabulum, and we will make this acetabulum more roomy and normal acetabulum inclination, and we will fix it by K-wire only, and this osteotomy called Salter innominate osteotomy. This is one type of pelvic support osteotomy. Pelvic support means I will discuss it immediately, but you just know in your level that Salter osteotomy is the best osteotomy and used to do very easily by taking the bone graft through the incision site of the iliac test, and we will put it over there for making a good rooming of the acetabular, or it also called self type, or to make a self over this area. Okay. uh, mm, uh, and uh, after that you have to know some other osteotomy is called Pemberton osteotomy, Cherry osteotomy, Dega osteotomy. But for your undergraduate level, all the osteotomy is not needed. Just know the protocol, and this time duration along with the treatment protocol is more than sufficient. And for postgraduate student, the name of the osteotomy is sufficient: Pemberton, Cherry, Dega. Okay. Now, hyperextension of the knee or congenital dislocation of the knee is also a common problem of the limb. See, normal knee is posteriorly flexed, but if this is anteriorly flexed, this is called hyperextension of the knee. When this grade is grade 3, means it is it is dislocated, that is called congenital dislocation of knee. Okay, so grade 3 hyperextension of the knee is called congenital dislocation of the knee. Clinically, how you assess it? May be bilateral, it may be unilateral, and on the posterior aspect there will be no crease, anterior aspect will be crease, and sometimes in case of dislocation, the condyle of the femur will be felt from the popliteal aspect. Now, what are the treatment protocol? Don't get afraid of this. When I was a student, or I was a resident in my life, then I was very much astonished with first seeing this, and I was very much afraid of also how we manage this. After reading the book, I can assess one thing, that child has a beautiful remodeling property. If we can reduce it by a wedge, like CTB, wedge correction, and that deformity easily corrected, especially hyperextension 1 and grade 1 and grade 2. What will the norm of the just do the flexion and hold it in a position, and just do a long leg cast. And keep in mind, do not press any thumb over the popliteal region. Just try to do flexion as much as possible, and this plaster will be repeat after 3 weeks again. You will remove the cast, again we will try to flex, again we will do the plaster. Again plaster patient call in follow up. So 3 to 4 weeks interval is the normal criteria for corrective plaster wedge correction. And within 3 to 4 sitting, that deformity is magically corrected. Okay, but problem with this knee dislocation, in this case, if we try to flex it, then the popliteal artery and nerve may be compressed. So what we have to do, we have to give a traction, and we have to put a pressure over the femoral condyle. See, this is the femoral condyle. We have to put a pressure over there, and you have to reduce it. And after reduction, you will put a thumb just over this popliteal region, and we have to ask your assistant to do the plaster. And this is very tricky. After the plaster consolidation, just remove this thumb and mold this plaster accordingly. But take care of the sore over this area, and take care of that dislocation or redislocation or compression of the neurological part, and that will be also corrected by a plaster. Okay, and at least 4 sitting is needed, and when that will be done at least 90 degree, then we can allow that patient for daily home physiotherapy, and in the long run the deformity will not recur generally. Okay, it no need any bracing protocol. But In some resistant variety, this hyperextension can cause thus contracture of the extensor mechanism. In that case, in sometimes we can need a release of the extensor tendon. See the heart mark, and this was a gate 3 dislocation, and this is easily corrected. Okay, so this is a entity hypertension of the knee. Just treatment is wedge correction. Okay, now spina bifida. Spinal dysplasia or spinal canal malformation, most common is spina bifida. And among them, spina bifida occulta is the most common variety. It may be associated with a skin tag of a hair hairy island. Okay, and then meningocele. Then the less chance is melingomyelocele. In this melingomyelocele, there will be some nerve fiber within the swelling in the midline of the child, and in the meningocele only CSF will come and dura matter will come. And one thing you have to keep in mind, in severe degree of meningocele, there is a chance of the raw exposure of the wound. Then this type of child must do dressing with normal saline only until and unless any operative intervention has been done. This meningomyelocele or any spina bifida patient most commonly predisposed with maternal folic acid and zinc deficiency. So in your pre-anesthetic checkup, or sorry, pre-antenatal checkup, and the role of folic acid and zinc is very essential to prevent this disease. Now, when child came with this, generally is associated with CTB or associated with any other congenital anomaly. If it is associated with CTB, do not go for plaster, because this type of patient may associated with most commonly skin problem and plaster problem. So first correct this, then we can correct the foot. Okay, and you have to take care, take help of the neurosurgeon and pediatric surgeon. You have to do a MRI for planning of the operation. But believe me, the treatment of this spina bifida, especially in meningomyelocele and meningocele, is very difficult and very frustrating also, because the result is not up to the mark. So how we can go to the betterment of that patient? We can do intrauterine surgery. This is a special field in gynae and obs. We can do surgery over the fetus. This is called umbilical cord patch closure of the spina bifida. We can do it open, or nowadays this operation used to perform by fetoscopy, and this is the emerging field in our obstetrics. So just know this. Okay, now radial club hand, it is also very common in our OPD. In that case, absence or hypoplasia of the thumb is occur, and the radial deviation of the wrist is called manus valgus. Okay, manus valgus means the wrist deviation towards the outwards or radial side. In that case, the radius will be absent, maybe whole radius or maybe partial radius, as per the degree that will be directed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that may be associated with Fanconi anemia, that may be associated with thrombocytopenia or Acadia syndrome or bacterial syndrome. Okay, so syndrome association of this type of child is very very common. So you have to go for the thorough examination both cardiovascular system along with the blood dysphagia, and any other abdominal ultrasound you have to exclude all the anomaly, and you have to address accordingly. But for our orthopedic practice or point of view, the deformity is due to absence of this bone along with some contracture of this soft tissue, and it also associated with absence of some muscle and absence of some nerve like anterointerosseous nerve, anterointerosseous artery, brachioradialis, and superficial radial nerve will be absent. Now for this we can stretch this by a external fixator or any type of splintage because the putting external fixator in a child is very difficult, or maintaining also, and but we can do. After that we can do centralization of this forearm by is also called single bone forearm operation. You just know, okay, but you have to exclude all the possible congenital anomaly before. Okay, now I am going in a very difficult topic as per my knowledge, and I have no such expertization over this cerebral palsy or hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, but I will try to give you just some basic concept that will help you for from the exam. See, as the fetal circulation is very complicated, that it gets supply from the placenta, so any insult of the placenta circulation or any insult just after the birth can cause the hypoxia of the brain, because among the whole body the brain is the most vulnerable part which can not tolerate the hypoxia for 10 seconds. Okay, now among for the whole part the newborn baby brain, especially just side of the internal capsule, basal ganglia and putamen, this area are more vulnerable and vulnerable for the ischemia, and due to ischemia there is a chance of periventricular leukomalacia. As a result, the sequelae there will be some neurological problem, and maximum are came with the hemiplegia, or lower limb will be very defect, very affected is called diplegia, or whole limb is affected is called quadriplegia, or if there is any dyskinetic movement, then it can call athetoid type. Now all are the sequelae of hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. It has 4 gate, among them the gate 3 onwards, and the prognosis is very bad, because it is irreversible damage of the brain, and after damage of the brain, the brain tissue will be filled up by glial tissue, because it has no stem cell except hippocampus and the olfactory bulb. Now due to unknown causes or hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, these are damage of the brain, and it present at the birth, and most commonly present of cerebral palsy present with a spastic quadriplegia or quadriparesis, and grimacing, head rolling, and difficulty in speech and swallowing. But by the grace of the God, the intelligence will be quite normal. In the cerebral palsy, the muscle will not affected. Okay, what will happen? Affect is brain. So brain is unable to send appropriate signal for necessary action which will taken by the nerve when it will contact or when it will relax. Okay, and believe me, this neurological pathway is very interesting, but this the normal action of the muscle and neural bed is very complicated. If there is any problem in any pathway, then all the system will collapse. Now, for the insult of the brain, most commonly the cerebral palsy patient present with the spastic CP. In this case, increased muscle tone, tense, contracted muscle, along with have some stiff and jerky movement, and limb are usually uninvolved, uh, underdeveloped, and increase the deep tendon reflex. And this is the most common for 70 to 80% cases came with this. Now, after that, the if the both leg and are more affected, that is called diplegic type of variety. And in this case, Talipes equinovarus or clubfoot may be associated also. And this is one type of is called hemiplegic type. In this case, only one side will be affected. Okay, and this hemiplegic patient may be associated with the equinus deformity and the hip and knee contracture. Okay, now in severe varieties called quadriplegia or quadriparesis or spastic quadriparesis, that is characteristic by scissoring posture of the both lower limb due to highly active the adductor muscle or due to adductor spasm. uh, and this type of child will do the commando crawl or Caesarean gait. And some problem in the brain neurotransmitter, there will be type dyskinetic type of child. And in that case, the slow uncontrolled motion and twisting of and grimacing of the face, extremity and torso along with dystonia will occur along with the adductor spasm. This is called athetoid or dystonic type of CP. Okay, and some ataxic type of CP, the child will suffer from a poor balance, lack of coordination, perception, depth perception will be affected. As a result, wide base gait will occur. Any case of cerebral disease also, the child will will walk with wide base, like any brain tumor which will affect the vermis, and that child will also walk with this wide broad base gait. Okay, but some case of ataxic CP also doing this. And sometimes we can get spastic and athetoid, both mixed type. Now I think you get confused with this all type, but just remember the spastic CP. It is 70 to 80% child will come with this spastic CP, where we can get the increased tone of the muscle and the contracture of the muscle. Okay, now that as per the degree of the severity of the patient, the prognosis or the stage of the disease can be classified by gross motor function classification system. Okay, for undergraduate student, you just know the name, and there is 5 level. In the level 5, patient will be self mobility is severely limited even with use of assisted technology. And grade 1 is walk without restriction limitation in more advanced gross motor skill. Okay, or level 2, 3, 4, you can read it, but just know as the level increase, the severity will increase. Okay, and the name of this getting is gross motor function classification system. The name, just remember this name only. Okay, and how you judge a case of hippie child? Because just see the posture. Just remember posture. Posture means poor muscle control strength, and the stance and the oropharyngeal problem like drooling, swallowing, feeding. Then strabismus or squint. Okay, then tone is hypertonia or hypotonia or flappy child may be present in the early stage. Then evaluation of the male development, okay, and then that all the reflex will be exerted. So among them, if we get 4 to 6 strong point, then we can stamp it as a CP. Okay. Now again I just for your remember for your knowledge, abnormal tone, abnormal strain, abnormal reflex, persistent motor delay, cognitive deficiency, associated handicap problem, and any balance problem or loss of control coordination, we will stamp it as a CP child if 4 to 6 will be positive. Now for early diagnosis is very important for the prognosis of the CP patient. Like within 3 months, patient will stiff or floppy posture. Okay, and excessive lethargy, irritability, or high pitch cry may suspect a case of CP, or poor head control, or weak suck, tongue thrust, and toning bite and feeding difficulty without any sign of sepsis. Now in the CP child, generally the growth will be growth curve or milestone will be delay, and patient can sit in W position. W means this type of position is called W position, knee flex and leg extend rotated. Then patient may present with the spastic CP. And spastic means there will be spastic equinus, walking on the tiptoe, hopping also called. Okay, and this abnormal development pattern after 1 year of the age, we can see this type of position. Now how you treat this type of child? See, you must take help of the neuro developmental fellow or any pediatric specialist who are specialized on this neurodevelopmental disorder. But for your knowledge, you just know you can give baclofen. It is a oral delivery system by which you can relax the hypertonic muscle, and the GABA agonist, which will inhibit the release of the excitatory neurotransmitter at the level of spinal cord. Okay, and it is commonly used in a starting dose of 1.25 to 2.5 milligram BD orally. Okay, this is the baclofen. Now botulinum toxin also help for spastic type of cerebral palsy, but the application of the botulinum toxin is very difficult, because the monitoring is very difficult. The multiple injection site to avoid the toxicity, acetylcholine blocking chemical derivative, that can require a good care. But for your academic interest, you just know the botulinum toxin injection over the gastrocnemius or soleus used to give it to manage a spastic equinus. Okay, now with the help of neurosurgeon, we can go for selective posterior rhizotomy. It is the best for the spastic diplegia, 4 to 8 years of child, no previous surgery, no contracture, no extrapyramidal sign, not done in hemi or quadriplegic patient. It is special type of operation done by neurosurgeon. It's called selective posterior rhizotomy. Okay. Now for orthopedic point of view, you have to know the timing of orthopedic surgery and what is the key of the surgery. Otherwise you have to do a surgery every year. Suppose patient present with a spastic equinus. Now you will release this tendon. Then patient again will come with a couch gait due to hamstring spasm. Then you will release this hamstring. After 1 year, patient will come with a stooping forward gait due to psoas tendon contracture. Again when you will release this, again patient will come after 1 year with rectus femoris contracture with the hip flexion, again you will release it, then patient get okay. So avoid multiple surgery for this is called birthday operation syndrome. Okay, so you have to know what are the pathology and what are the proper timing of the operation. Especially I already discussed the development dysplasia of hip or development dislocation of the hip less than 5 year in structural deformity. This is also called neurologic hip. Okay, neurological dislocated hip. The treatment protocol of neurological dislocated is quite difficult, so you have to refer it to the pediatric orthopedic surgeon and also to the neurologist. Then for improvement of gait we can do some release operation, and up to 6 years we just want to improve its gait pattern, and we have to give some aid for his normal activity. Most commonly patient this CP child used to come with Hungarian gait, so we can do adductor tenotomy or adductor release or gastrus release that will help for this Hungarian gait. And sometimes we can see the flat foot, stooping gait, Caesarean gait, along with jumping gait, all this. And when we will see the equinus, you have to see what are the cause of the equinus. If it is due to gastrocnemius or it is due to soleus, how differentiate? You have to see first the movement of the ankle joint. Then we have to flex the knee joint. When you flex the knee joint, the gastrocnemius will release. Now you will try to extend or dorsiflex the ankle. If this ankle will easily dorsiflex, that means the cause was the gastrocnemius contracture. Or after this flexion of the knee, if you try to extend or dorsiflex the ankle, but this dorsiflexion does not occur, then that means the cause of the equinus was soleus, because the origin of the soleus in the below the knee joint. Now if it is partially corrected, then how we assess? The inference of this test is called both due to both contracture for both gastrocnemius and soleus. So accordingly this finding we can judge and we can do the release or the design. This is called silver square test. Okay, and we can give bracing, we can give any small surgery for tendon release and regular physiotherapy. Now lengthening of the Achilles tendon is quite good for this type of child, or it can be done if percutaneous or hemidissection of the Achilles tendon, and the aiding of the CP child will gives a very fantastic result. So early diagnosis of CP child and specialized surgery in the timing of the surgery is the key of this success. But for my advice, please you have to take help of a good neurologist. You have to take you have to refer it to the pediatric orthopedic surgeon who are used to do this this job with a expert hand. Okay, so now I can quite confident that you can treat this the congenital anomaly chapter with a good hope. Thank you.